Welcome back, and our first opening statement is by Bill Howell.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you all for having us here this evening. I'm looking forward to it. My wife, Ceci, and I moved to Stafford County almost 40 years ago. We've enjoyed living in this community very much. We've made a lot of friends, done a lot of community activities, but certainly the most enjoyable, most rewarding thing that I've been able to do is for the past 20 years, I've been a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, and for the past 13 years, I've had the distinct honor of being the Speaker of the Virginia House. When I'm Speaker, it means I run twice a year. I run for re-election as a delegate in Fredericksburg and Stafford, and then I have to be elected or re-elected by my colleagues in the House. And I'm pleased to say that for the past 7 elections, I've had a unanimous verdict from all people in the House, Republicans and Democrats. And it's been a very challenging but a very rewarding time for us. We've done a lot of good things in Virginia. Fredericksburg, Stafford is about halfway between Washington and Richmond. You look to the north and you see dysfunction, debt, cannot get things done. And you look to the south at Richmond, we have a balanced budget. We have a surplus, in fact. We have bipartisan efforts to get things done. So there's a world of difference, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to do. But, elections are about the future, and this is about what we have to do in the coming years. Virginia faces a lot of problems. We have fiscal challenges. We continue to have challenges with our higher education costs, with K through 12, with health care. And I'm looking forward to using my experience and my leadership to be able to address those problems. Virginia has a great future ahead of us, and I look forward to being a part of it. Thank you.
And now with her opening statement, Candy Hilliard.
Thank you. Let me start by telling you just a little bit about myself. I grew up in a Navy family, and we lived all over the world. I moved to Stafford County in 9th grade and have lived here for 44 years. It doesn't seem possible. I married Charlie Hilliard. We have 2 children. Zach and Carlin, who are both graduates of Brookpoint High School, and both are graduates of Virginia Tech. I'm an assistant director at the Child Care Network, and I've been a child advocate for decades. I served on the Board of Supervisors, and I'm proud of the accomplishments that we accomplished during that time. I secured $30 million for the preservation of Crow's Nest. We brought the Fred bus system to Stafford. We made critical infrastructure investments in our firehouses. We added generators to the older firehouses. We continued to build schools, of course, and we built a brand new public safety building and a state-of-the-art communications system. Most importantly, during that time, we governed with civility. I think we were one of the last boards really to do that in Stafford, because we really agreed on basic principles and basic rules and established some common goals. And we decided that when we were going to, if we disagreed with one another, we would do it with respect for one another and in a polite manner. I believe that we need new leadership in Richmond that represents the needs of the people, not the needs of big business and special interests. I'm running because I don't think that the hot lanes can be our only answer to transportation. I'm running because I believe that we need to expand Medicaid in Virginia and give the 400,000 working people access to health care, especially since that includes 22,500 veterans and their spouses. I believe in the power of public education. We need to invest in teachers and reduce class sizes if we expect our children to be able to compete in the global economy. This election is about looking toward our future. We need to decide what kind of community we want to live in, and I believe that every one of us should have a say in how it looks. Thank you.
I guess I have the first question. Speaker Howell, the hot lanes were already mentioned, and everyone seemed to be very happy when they completed the project. But now it seems there's gridlock in Stafford when everyone gets off at Garrisonville. I know that after a Nationals game, took that for the first time. It cost me $19, and when I got to 610, I was backed up for a while. What, if anything, can you do to move it down to Rappahannock like they've talked about doing?
Well, that's a great question, and I know it's an issue before a lot of people right now. The hot lanes, I think, have been very successful. If you look at they've done a lot of studies along the corridor. People are saving on average 25, 30 minutes a trip. they're saving 17 minutes on average on a trip on the regular lanes because there's less people in the regular lanes. The occasional, or not the occasional, but the gridlock at the terminus in Stafford is unfortunate, but they are taking steps to ameliorate it. There are strong discussions going on right now between Transurban and the Virginia Department of Transportation to extend the lane down below Route 610 and have a longer lane for people getting off. That will help some. You ask about it going to Rappahannock. That's an incredibly expensive proposition, and it's probably years off. I'd love to see it, but it's going to cost billions of dollars to do something like that. And I think Transurban probably feels that the ridership's not there to support it, and the Commonwealth certainly doesn't have the money to go forward with it. So it's something we're going to have to work with. Transportation is something, and I'd love to talk about it when I have more time, that I've been very involved with over the past 10 years in particular. Every major transportation bill that we've had in the General Assembly has either been patroned by me or initiated by me, and I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to do. We've still got a long ways to go, but we're getting there.
Same question?
Same question.
Okay. You know, the hot lanes, I've had the opportunity to talk to folks as I've gone door to door about the hot lanes, and what I have consistently heard was just like, we've got to have another thing besides the hot lanes to address traffic in our community. When I was on the Board of Supervisors, I voted against them. I said the thing that's most frustrating probably about the hot lanes is they really are too expensive, and they're still a bottleneck. People are still sitting in traffic. And in the summertime, people are literally held hostage in their house, people in Stafford County, especially right there along Route 1. So it's really been pretty bad for our residents, for the residents of the community in Stafford especially. We took a private road and we took a public road and we gave it to a private company with a 75-year lease. And we ended up basically privatizing the profits, but we've kept the public on the hook for any kind of risk. So if they don't make enough money, our state is still on the hook for paying those penalties. I really think that we need a long-term vision. There's a huge deficit in infrastructure. It's a long climb. There's no silver bullets. There's no magic answers. It's a long time planning, and it's about creating a vision. We need to be looking at different options. We need to be establishing an office for innovation. We need to be working with our federal partners, which maybe has begun, but we need to be bringing Woodbridge down at least to Woodbridge and talking about how do we bring additional aspects of transportation to our community to keep goods and people moving. One of the other things that we really need to do to help get folks off the road is we need to be expanding broadband all across the state so that people don't have to go away, they don't have to be on the road, and so that they can either work from home or actually start a business in their homes. I guess I look at the other final thing is we have $30 million or $300 million that was flushed down the toilet with a 460 bypass. Not a single spade of dirt was turned in that project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question I'd like to address concerns Medicaid, and specifically the proposal to expand Medicaid coverage to address various aspects of the Affordable Care Act. So you already addressed this a little bit. Could you expand on that? And Mr. Howell, could you state your position on it? If I go from starting with Ms. Hilliard left to right.
Sure, thank you. When we talk about Medicaid expansion, we have about 400,000 people who are without health care right now. That does include 22,500 veterans and their spouses who would qualify for health care if we expanded it in Virginia. Our taxes have already gone to pay for it. So by not expanding it, when people get really sick, they end up at the emergency room because they haven't been to the doctor. So typically when they're at the emergency room, we're talking about maybe a heart attack or a stroke because they haven't been able to take care of their high blood pressure or maybe their diabetes. With Medicaid expansion, we're talking about bringing $1.1 billion into hospital care for the poor. We're talking about $225 million that's hospital care for prisoners. That's money that localities are currently paying. That would allow the localities to not have to pay those funds, and it would be paid for by the federal government. $227 million would come into mental health care and substance abuse services. We have a terrible record in Virginia on mental health care. That, with totals like 1.7 billion, we're talking about having a lot of money put into our state budget that would help us provide those services. In Stafford and in Fredericksburg, we're talking about 4,400 people who would actually benefit. To me, that makes a lot of sense. When we talk about who's being served right now, we're talking about the elderly and children, and I believe it's important that we make sure those folks are taken care of. My faith tells me that that's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to take care of the least among us. So when we're talking about 400,000 people without health care insurance, we're talking about working people who just don't get a chance to go to the doctor. And when they don't go to the doctor, their health needs are so much worse than they would be. It will be really expensive up front, but once those people have health care and have that opportunity to get well, then we have a healthier community.
Speaker Howell again.
The expansion of Medicaid is something that has had a lot of discussion in the General Assembly. Of the 50 states, probably about 28 have elected to expand Medicaid, 22 or so have not. And it's interesting looking at the states that have expanded Medicaid and what's happened. Contrary to what Ms. Hilliard says, they're finding their costs are going through the roof. In Kentucky, they're looking at over $1 billion in deficit caused by expansion of Medicaid over the next 2 years. In Ohio, they're looking at a $1.5 billion shortfall caused by expansion of Medicaid. In Illinois, they're looking at about $800 million shortfall. It's on and on and on. 14 states have found that they have enrolled far more people than they anticipated, and 7 have had to change their budgets because of that. Right now in Virginia, in the existing Medicaid, which is truly for the needy, it's a safety net, there's no question about it. It's for the children, it's for the single mom, and it's for the aged and the infirm. And we are spending close to $4 billion a year. It's the largest part of our budget. It's far higher than K through 12. It's the fastest growing part of our budget. It's growing at 8% a year. This is existing Medicaid. We have a million people, more or less, on existing Medicaid. If you had 400,000 people of that, who's going to serve them? Right now, less than 50% of the doctors are serving Medicaid patients, and that percentage is declining. If you put 400,000 more people, who's going to serve them? The federal government is $18 trillion in debt. How are they going to continue to be able to subsidize this program? It's going to fall on the local government, on the state, and on the local governments. Local governments have to provide the CSP workers. They have to pay for that. How many more people are you going to have to hire in Fredericksburg and Stafford to take care of 4,000 or 5,000 new people? It's very expensive. There are other things that can be done. If he wasn't flashing his stop sign, I'd like to go into that, but perhaps we'll have a chance to talk about that.
The next question is about, this is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month at this point, and there's been a bill introduced in the General Assembly at least the past 4 years that would give police the authority when there's been a domestic assault, a protective order entered to protect a domestic partner. And right now, they have no authority to do that. So someone could have an arsenal and still not get the weapons out of the house and away from the abuser. That has been defeated 4 times in a row in the House Militia and Police Committee. And at no time has there ever been a recorded vote. So those in favor of it don't even know who to lobby because they don't know how anyone voted. Number one, are you for or against the bill? I'm sure you're familiar with it. And how can you try to get the votes made public?
I think the problem with the bill, you've really got 2 questions and
Right.
2 very separate questions.
Sure.
But I think the problem with the confiscating the weapons from somebody who's been accused of domestic violence hasn't been convicted, hasn't been charged. Just, there's been an accusation made. I think a lot of people are concerned about that sort of an infringement on personal liberties that someone might have. You can say that about anybody. I could call up and say, I understand that David Kerr's abusing his wife. Go get his gun. That's not the way we do things in this country. There's a rule of law and there's a procedure for doing it. I believe that we've done a lot in the legislature over the past couple of years to deal with domestic violence, to do other things that are more meaningful. I'm not sure that this is the proper way to go about it. With the non-recorded votes in subcommittee, anybody can ask for a vote to be recorded at any time.
But the public can't.
The public can't, but the members can. And there are Democrats and Republicans on those committees. And if a Democrat wants to get a recorded vote, he can ask for it.
Okay. I believe that that's one of the issues that we probably need to address. One of the things that I would certainly address in going down to the General Assembly. I believe that all the votes that occur in subcommittees should be recorded because I believe that people have a right to know how their delegates and their representatives, the people that were elected to go down there and represent them, that they should be able to very easily find out how folks voted. It should be available online, and there just shouldn't be any question. Again, there's a real need for increased transparency in Richmond, in my opinion. When it comes to domestic violence, I think that we need to be taking some very positive steps to make sure that people are protected. And if it's a very common sense approach that if folks have, are accused of domestic violence, then the guns are put away. We don't want people killed by their partner. And when guns are involved, it makes it much simpler. I'll share with you, my husband is an avid hunter. And I'm a mother of a student who was at Virginia Tech when that massacre occurred. And thank God my son came home. But 77% of the gun owners in the U.S. believe that it's important to establish common sense gun laws or common sense gun laws that will address violence that folks are experiencing. Things like universal background checks and closing the gun show loophole. But specifically when we come to domestic violence, I think we need to take it very seriously. Most of the murders that occur in this country occur from folks that know one another. And I think that when the General Assembly doesn't take that seriously and address it, I think it speaks volumes.
All right, we will take a short break, and we hope that you will come back for more of the debate.